Welcome to On the Slab Horror Show with me, your host, Ian the Dynamo Kelly, joined today by one half of the trio, I suppose, or one third of the trio would be a better way of saying it. The G Man himself, Greg Flanagan. Greg,
What's happening,
how are you doing, my brother?
homie?
Now,
She's in
of
the
course,
words of Meatloaf. 2 out of 3 ain't bad, I suppose.
no, hell no. That's it. It's better than one, isn't it? um, Today we've got a great show lined up for you. Yeah, a great show. Um, but before we do get into the show, of course, this is Friday night. And why do we do shows on a Friday night, Greg?
Because Friday night is horror night.
Damn
Well,
straight it
actually,
is.
every night can be horror night, but Friday night is especially a horror night.
When you live in our world, it's definitely horror night anyway. And the reason we bring this to you on
100%.
Horror Night is because we do like to keep it old school on the slab, and we like to make sure that all of you old school horror fans and new school horror fans get brought back in time with nostalgia to a time where you would be allowed to stay up after Watershed, or if you snuck up, in my case, after Watershed, or in my case, if you had a cool granny, then you were
I have
sorted
a,
on a Friday night
I
anyway.
have a, I have a cool granny, but
Yeah, I had a kill
that, that,
granny
that
there. Just let me watch all these horrors. So be sure to like and subscribe to our new channel. Hit the bell notification for all of the updates. We are soon to be on all of the audio hosting platforms as well. So that's something to come within the next week or two. But welcome once again, because we have a great show for you tonight, because we're talking about another John Carpenter gem, and probably I consider this his best movie personally. um 1980s
um,
The Fog.
yeah, I not my wouldn't be my pick for his best. I prefer Big Trouble in Little China. Definitely in terms of horror, uh, you're still going to be behind Halloween for me,
Mm-hmm.
but it's definitely his second best horror movie.
Cool. I like
Um,
that.
I forgot how good this movie was.
And that's it. And
Um,
even for you to say second best horror movie, that's no slight at all in any way, shape, or form. um
yeah, well, like
Now,
you
of
think he has
course,
The Thing and heaps of others. Do you know what I mean?
well, the great thing about this movie,
Like,
obviously written by himself and Deborah Hill, as always. Deborah Hill was his kind of co-writer, but he done all
me
the, as
too.
always, done the score for it and directed it as well. Um, and this is 2 years. A lot of people didn't realize this actually. There's I done a bit of research on this, and a lot of people didn't realize that this was out after Halloween. A lot of people
Yeah,
thought that this was before Halloween, but it's actually after Halloween. And obviously it's got Jamie Lee Curtis in it, starring Adrienne Barbeau, who obviously became his wife as well. You know, he was with
loyal
Deborah
to the
Hill as well
crew.
at some point. Yeah, he was with Deborah Hill before that, so there was a little bit of a, and she was pretty hot back then. To be fair, she's a great character in this movie. Um, Jamie Lee Curtis, of course, John Houseman, who is another fantastic actor, and someone that would have been used by himself a lot. Janet Leigh, and
Jamie Lee's ma,
yeah, yeah,
the
John Halbrook.
original Scream Queen.
Man, it's crazy, isn't it? A lot of people didn't realize that Janet Leigh in this is like literally the original Scream Queen, and it's like people don't
Yeah,
really ever get that. And then, of course, one of the staples of my childhood horror movies, because I'm an 80s child, um, Tom Atkins, who has the weirdest looking, largest head, and a very large man, and not an amazingly attractive man either. And I don't mean that, with any disrespect, but always seemed to get the girl in these movies. But he always had a level of comfort about his character, didn't he? He always felt
it's that
safe, even,
jawline, isn't it?
yeah, even as the viewer, you felt safe. You know what I mean?
That
Um,
that guy's getting me out of this situation we're in here.
Yeah, you know, like even in like Silver Bullet, he's in
Man, I
Silver
haven't
Bullet,
seen
isn't
that
he?
movie in years. He is, yeah.
I believe, yeah. So, but like Tom Atkins, very underrated actor, and obviously got typecast back in those days. But someone that's actually grown into, like, he looks better these days. Even he looks great these days, even as an older man. He's just like, he's so cool. He has a little mustache going. Um, but this, I think this is a fantastic movie, obviously, and obviously, to kind of give some background and context on why I love this movie so much. I saw this movie when I was about 12. I was sitting in Bray, in Parnell Road in Bray, with my grandmother, who I used to mainly watch horror movies with, when I'd stay over with her on a Friday. And yeah, and because it was always like it was on Channel 4, there'd be a 9 o'clock or a 10 o'clock showing, you know what I mean? And
Yeah. Or
so watch
TG4, one of
this.
them.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so this one came on. I mean, Annie says, "Oh, you like this, The Fog?" And I was like, "Okay." And I used to sit there, you know, drawing. You know, I'd be just doodling on my iPad. And I was like, "Okay, so put the iPad down. Watch this one." And I remember kind of being terrified by this purely because in my little head, I thought this could be Bray Beach. You know what I mean?
It
It's
most definitely could have been Bray Beach.
you know what I
Like,
mean?
it's a small seaside town. Like Bray would have been small back then. Well, smaller.
Yeah,
Back then, and like essentially, like it did get covered in mist up around the top of Bray, like, especially rolling in near Bray Head and up near there.
yeah.
Like the fog rolled in, and it's dense.
It's terrifying. It's terrifying.
Yeah. But like, the premise of this movie is so simple.
So simple.
Like I noticed, like when I rewatched this, I only texted you there a couple of weeks ago when I rewatched it for the first time, probably in about 10 or 15 years. It's Pirates of the Caribbean is a very similar kind of movie to this.
Yeah.
In terms of what Disney done with it in bringing in missing gold and pirates and whatnot.
100%.
Like has to be somewhatly based off this, or they based this off the original Pirates of the Caribbean ride or something, because there's too many similarities to it.
I think what you're saying is right, because like, to give anyone that hasn't seen the movie just a little bit of context, we won't give away. But then again, it's a movie from 1980. If you're watching it, you've seen it. If you're going to complain that you haven't seen it, well then, shame on you. Go and watch it.
41 years old.
Exactly, like. But basically, the premise is like, it's on the eve basically of the 100th anniversary of the town in Antonio Bay, in Northern California, and John Houseman's character tells a story that he tells ghost stories, you know, to children, and he tells of how the town was kind of built. One of the stories is about a local ship that had crashed against the rocks, causing all of its crew to drown. And then paranormal kind of activity, weird stuff starts happening at midnight, the witching hour, as they say. Some people say the witching hour is 3 o'clock in the morning. Some people say it's midnight. It's just.
Yeah, I'd have always known it to be 3 in the morning.
Well, that's because we are Celts, and that is the true witching hour. However, I think a lot of radio broadcasters back in those days that used to kind of tell stories, midnight would still be a good time for people, truckers and stuff, driving home, and people that would stay up to watch stuff. So the witching hour, you know, at midnight, I suppose, I'm only guessing here, I suppose that they probably call it the witching hour because of that. You know what I mean?
I'd say they were probably off air as well by 3 o'clock.
Exactly. So I'd say 12 o'clock was probably a good time to kind of get some scares and stuff in there, you know, because everything was radio.
It was all done for a reason, yeah.
Exactly. But this is really cool. So one of the stories, so Father Malone, obviously Hal Halbrook, he discovers obviously his granddad's diary. He's fantastic. He discovers his granddad's diary and reads in the diary how basically the town conspired against Blake, who was who was a local
Weird.
kind of shipman, and conspired against them, and they deliberately kind of sank like a clipper ship named the Elizabeth Dane, um, so that its wealthy leprosy afflicted owner Blake would not establish a leper colony nearby, because obviously Blake was a leper. The conspirators used some of the gold plundered from the ship to fund the town. So basically, the premise of this is, that's enough without giving too much away. The premise of this movie is that the town was built on debt. You know what I mean? Like, kind of like, I suppose, some of those old school movies that would have been, where you'd have an Indian burial ground or something like that, and it was already, you were doomed.
The likes of Pet, like
Poltergeist
Pet Sematary
and stuff like that. Yeah, it was doomed from the get-go. So what's really cool about this is this priest as well is such a cool dude, such a real nice man, you know what I mean? Again, very comforting character. But he's just gone down the rabbit hole with this conspiracy now, which probably what a lot of people believe is a conspiracy. But he's found the actual proof that they've completely built this town on a lie. Before you jump in there, Greg, what do you think about the we always talk about atmosphere on the show. This is something myself and Carl and yourself always talk about. This movie really does have a lovely dark atmosphere and a lovely kind of cinematography from it, doesn't it? It has a great visual.
Oh yeah, this is tense, dark. This is pretty much like the Texas Chainsaw. Things are gonna go from zero to fucked up very quickly now. Like everything is slowly building, but it's done at a pace, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You like see some movies that slow build to nothing. Like theoretically, say Jaws, for instance, some of the parts in Jaws has that slow build and then nothing happens. Where when the build in this happens, like you see Hal and actually John Carpenter was the guy working in the church.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'd like to get paid now. Like the music starts and then the rock breaks and then he finds the diary. The music starts, the kid finds the piece off the ship.
Yeah, the driftwood, obviously, with Dane, he gives it, because obviously Adrienne Barbeau's character, she's basically the local radio DJ, Stevie Wayne, and she's a great character in it as well, because that's what the whole town just listens to, that one radio show when she comes on at night, and she brings people from the witching hour, and she's got a really cool voice. This is Stevie Wayne bringing you to the witching hour. She's she's a good looking woman, sexy voice, kind of all the lads love her. But you can tell that the lads have a great relationship with her as well, because she'd be in contact with the dock guys and getting weather updates and stuff for all the fishermen. All the boats would be.
She knows everyone.
Yeah, she knows everyone. It's her son, obviously, that finds the piece of driftwood, which is the Dane, and he gets a gold coin as well, I believe. Am I right?
No, so the thing the piece of wood turns into the coin. Remember?
Yeah, later. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic premise.
I'd say if we'd been able to see this in the cinema, it'd have been fantastic, because you know how the cinema builds the atmosphere with the music. That's usually fairly quiet, no lights on, and like no distractions, especially around the 80s, because like you're not gonna have a mobile phone. So if you go to the cinema, you're going to the cinema.
Yeah.
You know
what about music in this one, actually, Greg? Because this is kind of a follow-on from Halloween, but like obviously with a completely different story.
Oh yeah.
John Carpenter, I thought, really upped the ante with the music in this one. I think it's very underrated, the score on this movie.
The score on this fits the dark, slow pace to an extent.
Yeah.
Like Halloween is slow paced as well, but the music picks it up.
Yeah.
This one, the music is slow and you're like, oh shit, something's coming. But when the music gets faster, obviously you can tell something's gonna happen, but it doesn't seem to happen much in this. Stuff just appears. Like it's like he throws it out there and it's just like, yeah, there you go.
What do you think about What do you think about the scene in the autopsy room
with the
with the
when they
corpse?
come in.
Yeah,
Uh, it was rough.
yeah,
It
it was
wasn't one of my favorite scenes. This,
because they obviously get a missing trawler, and Elizabeth and it just basically falls out on her. She's kind of chilled, and then it falls out, and then that's, you know, you get, of course, you get Jamie Lee Curtis's great scream, kind of, and you're kind of going, holy shit, what the fuck was that? But
yeah.
obviously it moves in the autopsy room. Then
It sits up, yeah.
yeah, and it's like,
It sits
what?
up or stands up,
Yeah, and then just drops.
yeah. But again, that's not something people had ever really seen, apart from the odd zombie movie that was made by,
Yeah.
say, Romero or something, but not like that.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? Like, that was just a dead body standing up. That wasn't a flesh-eating zombie or anything. That was just, here you go, that's gonna fuck you over right now.
so when you get to the actual fog itself, like when it starts coming into the town and all, I mean, that was fantastic. I mean, it's great for anyone that I generally don't like looking at the making of movies purely because it ruins it for me. But sometimes every now and then I'll listen to, like an interview with John Carpenter or something, and I'll listen to what he said, how much work went into actually putting it all together and putting all the pieces together. And you kind of see what kind of budget they had to work with and whatnot. But even with this budget, in fairness, I mean, it was I think the budget was only it was 1.1 million, and the box office it made 21.3 million, which is,
It's not bad, is it?
you know what I mean? I'd be happy with that.
Any film company in the world's gonna do that if you're gonna make them 20 million quid every time.
100%. But like the thing about like Tom Atkins' character, like he just basically finds Jamie Lee Curtis as a hitchhiker,
Yeah,
and
it's
they
real weird. Like,
they
it's
get
not
it on
so-
really quick.
Yeah, she falls in love with him. That's the only thing like you'd say. There's certain movies, like even I mentioned earlier, Big Trouble in Little China. She becomes infatuated very quickly in that. Kim Cattrall becomes very infatuated with Kurt Russell. Same way Jamie Lee Curtis becomes infatuated very quickly in this.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's strange. Like, things don't happen that quick. Now, I'm not saying they don't happen. Like, you can pick someone up at a nightclub and whatever, but very rare that it's gonna happen like that.
Yeah, it's usually
so-
built over time, to be fair.
Yeah. Some of it, that's probably the only problem with it. Actually, no, the fog when the green light keeps thing. I know it's still meant to be the lighthouse, but that really annoyed me.
That didn't
When
annoy
the
me,
fog's
though, I have
rolling
to
in,
say.
it's all green.
Yeah, it didn't annoy
No, I
me.
will
have to
say it looked great. It looked great when it comes to the lighthouse door and it's the red door.
What about when it comes into the house and you see the hook knocking at the front door? I mean, that, for me, that was genuinely terrifying watching that with my grandmother. And the worst part about it was she got tired and left me on my own to watch the rest of it, and I couldn't move. So
Like if you
I
think about it,
literally
right?
could not move.
Like if you think about that, so you're sitting there watching that with your granny at probably what 12, you said, right?
If it maybe even younger, but in and around that age, yeah.
How close was that to you? Because that's a lady and a kid that she's minding.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, then she opens the door and gets all sorts of fucked up.
Yeah. It's actually mad. The kid is, and like they are the genuinely terrifying scenes that I think John Carpenter has down to a T and done better than anybody else, where it gives you that sense of claustrophobic kind of feeling. You know what I mean? Where you're like, I don't know.
It's closing in, like.
Yeah, and obviously you see these boys, you don't really see it, and you just see like kind of hands, and they're withered, full of seaweed and stuff like that, which is obviously the comparison that you made to Pirates of the Caribbean and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think, going further, obviously the kind of end scene when they know that they're coming for the church, they're coming for the gold. It's the gold cross has been made with all the gold and stuff like that. And the priest knows his fate. However, like, he didn't do anything wrong. You kind of feel bad for him, actually. He didn't do shit. Like,
He's just taking one for the team here.
take him up for the team because he knows his ancestors fucked up, But
Yeah.
when you see that scene at the end where you see all the pirates there and they have the glowing red eyes in the fog,
And that's terrifying.
and they're just standing there.
There's what? Is there 12 of them that
About
come in the
12,
church
yeah.
door? Yeah. And then you obviously have Blake, who's the main one that comes up. But his eyes are a lot darker than everybody else's.
Oh yeah.
And,
He's a leper, you see.
Just tell. Yeah, you can just tell he's one evil motherfucker.
Yeah, well, to be fair, he wasn't born evil, born a leper. However, evil was done unto him, and he's come back to pay back that to return that receipt, with full fucking grandeur, let's say. Yeah.
I mean, he throws the double take here as well, where he comes away and he just gets left, and you're like, oh, and then you're like, oh, is that it? And then it was not.
Comes back. It was actually it was one of the scenes, one of the famous kind of screenshots, isn't it, of the priest holding the cross, holding the cross, and the light coming off it, and his eyes just looking absolutely.
He looks absolutely terrified.
Yeah,
it's like they hadn't told him what's coming, and then just went, "This is what we're doing. Go now."
Yeah, I mean, for me, this is a very, very, without we never do rundowns of full movies, but we're picking out specific scenes here. I think even like, I suppose the context of this movie as well is that Stevie Wayne, who was obviously working as the radio host, the DJ or whatever you ever want to call her back then, like she's kind of the narrator in points. She's telling people stay away from the fog if you see the fog, and that's actually what makes it even more terrifying. When she's in the lighthouse and they come for her and she's trying to get away from that, and it's it's genuinely terrifying because she's all alone in this big fucking tin house.
One of the scenes that really stick is when she's in there and the fog's rolling towards the house.
Yeah.
And she's screaming for someone to help the kid.
Yeah.
And like the acting that she does there is phenomenal.
She done a really, really fantastic. I think she's kind of the standout actor in this, isn't she?
Yeah. Like Jamie Lee Curtis doesn't do a whole lot.
No, she's just there. You know what I mean? But she does. Yeah. She does well. Her,
they all do well.
Yeah. But they're not the main characters. Like.
There is no real main character in this, though.
I think Stevie Wayne would be, personally.
Yeah, she would be, but like, essentially, there's no one that really you could say, oh well, you could be the main actress, or you could be the main actress. You know what I mean? Everyone has their part to play. So that kind of way, it's like she has a very vital role in it. The kid has a very vital role. The priest, obviously. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot to it. There's a lot of moving parts to it. But it's a fairly easy film to follow. Like, he didn't overcomplicate it, which was great.
No, and it stands.
I love that's what he done. Well, it can't have been as bad as the fucking remake anyway. Boy,
which we won't mention.
No, boy, Jesus. But no. John Carpenter, I was always, as I've said it many times on the show, I was always a Wes Craven guy, but over the last while I've gone back and started watching a lot of John Carpenter's older stuff. Obviously went back to the likes of Halloween with the build up to the newest one.
Even Assault on Precinct 13, like it's fantastic. You know what I mean?
That's so good. Big Trouble in Little China is obviously one of my favorite movies. And it's one of his most underrated movies.
Without a doubt.
Like The Thing, They Live, which is a show that we'll have coming up.
Yeah.
Hopefully in the next couple of weeks. There's like he is just a goat, really, isn't he?
He is, without a shadow of a doubt.
In
I don't
terms,
think I think it's unquestionable. He's always kind of been my goat purely because even though I
well, in
wasn't
terms of
necessarily,
horror, anyway.
yeah, like even though I wasn't necessarily like didn't grow up when he was making these movies, like they were still very prevalent movies at that time. Like they were the go-to movies that you needed to see if you were a fan of horror. And I
But
suppose the
like we're here 40 years later, and
yeah,
they're still being talked about.
yeah,
Like Halloween is still arguably one of the most watched horror movies ever.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. I
And
think
like
so.
there's like the thing is definitely up there as well. This one probably slips a little more under the radar on his hit list, and I'm not sure why. Now maybe it came out at a bad time or something. It just like I know the box office done well, but like in terms of nameable movies that John Carpenter done, this probably wouldn't even be in the top 5 for most people. And that's not taking a shot at the movie. That's just
Yeah,
like
like,
some
and
of
as I
the
say, for
names of the
me, it's
movies that
kind
he
of
has.
for me, it's number one along with obviously Halloween. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's kind of almost a jump, and it's so hard because it depends. It's like horses for courses, isn't it? It's like the weather. You could change your mind the next day and be like, oh no, I'm feeling I'm feeling the thing today, or I'm feeling kind of like I want to watch They Live. It's just it's so amazing. Like there's another little made for TV kind of VHS kind of deal that he done back in the day as well. It's called Somebody's Watching You. Um and that's another
I can't say I've heard that one.
yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. It's all about a guy who's basically living in basically the apartment complex directly across from this girl, and he's constantly calling her, telling her like what you
That sounds very familiar.
yeah, like it's a made for TV kind of movie. A little
It's like
gem,
the
very
mini
very
series.
hard to find these days. I remember getting it, back in the day. But we can announce we are going to be doing a series on directors, and we will be looking back through their discography, which we discovered today. No pun intended. Um, and so obviously John Carpenter is going to be right at the top of that list, and then obviously the likes of Wes Craven and you know Robert A.
They're
Romero and stuff like that.
Argentino
So there's going to be that's going to be a cool little thing where we'll do little deep dives into directors specifically. But look, I suppose as we wrap up, like for me, I personally, yeah, I think The Fog is an absolutely amazing movie. Anyone that hasn't seen it, I really do implore you actually to watch it, because I think
for the
it's
love of God,
fantastic.
don't watch the 2005 one. Don't do it. Don't make that mistake.
No, a lot of people at that time tried to assume that they were doing remakes of John Carpenter movies because around, it wasn't too long either before or after that they'd done The Thing, which people thought was a remake, but we obviously showed on a previous episode that that was not the case. It was not a remake.
It was an 11, wasn't it? So it went. The Fog was the first one.
It was a prelude.
It was remade.
Yeah.
And then there was Rob Zombie obviously had a pop at Halloween, or had 2 pops at it.
Yeah.
And then obviously The Thing came out, and then they've gone from there. But like, they just need to stop. Leave the classics alone. Like,
yeah. See, I mean, with the only defense I'll give The Thing is that that's kind of more of a prelude to.
oh yeah, no, 100%. That one was fine, and wasn't a bad movie. But like,
If you
they
watch
made an
both of them in
absolute
sequence,
ball.
yeah, if you watch the latest one and then follow it up with John Carpenter's one, then it kind of gives you a little bit of context as to what came before. So I kind of admire what they were trying to do there. Whereas,
See,
the
yeah,
Fog
like,
remake.
I said, yeah, I said to you when we done the Thing episode, going to see that one, I was like, yeah, no, this is just a remake, and I'm gonna hate it. And then when it got to the point where you see the axe in the wall, I was like, they did it.
Yeah, yeah.
And
See,
it's
look,
such subtle things that they did in the movie, and then you're like, then you watch the original one, and you're like, oh shit, it all ties in.
yeah, because I was
doesn't
actually
really do
talking
that
to you at that time. Remember, I said to you, I was like, Greg, you need
Yeah.
to do it. Just go and watch it. first and then
Yeah.
follow it up with the latest one, and then it will all make sense. You know what I mean? So
And like, it didn't really dawn. Like I remember the axe being in the wall and going, "Oh, that's there in the new one, in the old one." And then at the end of it, you see the dog going, and you're like, "That son of a bitch."
but that's what I would call a tribute to the original movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's not to the
That
original
was
movie.
brilliant. Well, it wasn't brilliant, but it was very good. Like,
It was good, and when you watch the two of them
Um,
in sequence, it's good. But look,
yeah.
that about wraps it up for today. Of course,
Uh,
please do be sure to let us
how
know
many
your.
slabs?
Huh?
How many slabs?
Oh, for me, it's getting all 5, man.
5.
Yeah, if I could give it 6, I'd give it 6, but I'll give it 5.
I'd give it 4. Surely for some of the tiny little things that go wrong with it. Obviously, horror going from not knowing this guy to 100% in love with him in the space of 8 minutes.
Well, then again,
small things like that.
then again, she could have been riding like from about 3 different states with this guy, and they stopped off.
Oh, that's
numerous
true.
times,
Yeah,
you know.
that's true. Well, yeah,
So,
I could settle on 4.5, close to 5.
I'm such an influencer, am I?
Sometimes.
When it comes to that kind of thing, absolutely.
I suppose though it does make sense. You don't actually know how long.
They've been in. They could have been in the car for days. Do you know what I mean? Stopping off at motels, stopping off at something. They could have been going, from a different state all the way, because you don't know where she is at that time, and they stopped there. So,
Yeah.
and obviously he has to condense it into a movie that's worth watching. So it's not going to be a love story. So,
Yeah. I suppose they couldn't make that into a love story.
exactly. So that's where I'm seeing that maybe they've fallen for each other over that couple of days that they've been in each other's presence. So that's
I
my
mean, the
my
honeymoon
narrative
period.
and my opinion, and I'm sticking to it.
Good.
So you're gonna settle on 4.5, or you're close to 5. I think you're at the 5
Yeah.
now. If you're close to 5, you may as well give it the 5.
Well, we'll give it the 5 then.
We'll give it the 5. You see, this is there we go. Yeah, I'm giving it 10 subliminally, but now that I've said it, it's not so subliminal.
11, 11, 11.
11, 11, 11. Right, so look, that's all we got time for this week. Obviously, please, ladies and gents, guys and gals, please do like, subscribe to the show, share it with your friends, but most importantly, let us know your feedback. Do use the comment section below to let us know what you think of The Fog. Were you a fan? Do you think it was underrated? Is it a movie that you actually agree with a lot of the kind of mainstream media, that it was just a movie for the sake of the movie and didn't like it? I don't know. Let's hear your thoughts and opinions on it. Either way, thank you for listening. This has been myself and the G-Man, Greg Flanagan, of course, giving you your fix of Friday night horror. And Greg, until next week, my friend,
Adios.
we are over and out.